my face was beet red, my heart was
Right.
pumping. I hung up the phone. I didn't even know what to say. It was from that moment though where I realized that.
All right, everyone, welcome to this episode of Cyber Confidential. We're going to dive into sales because you know I love the topic. Today's guest, Steve Young from Nexus Group, with a long history of working at his dad's MSP and kicking butt. We met at the first time at ScaleCon 2024, and we just were at ScaleCon 2025 like 6 months ago. But now we're getting together to talk about sales in the trenches. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Mike. Glad we can make it happen.
All right, give us the background story of your life up to here.
The entire backstory. We'll go deep here, but yeah, why am I here? Well, like you said, I worked for a family owned and operated MSP, and like a lot of people, I had that route where I worked every single aspect of the MSP business, from the person who was literally moving boxes to a level one help desk technician, moving into the client success side of things, touching on marketing, and then I really found my home in sales. I got the tap on the shoulder, and my pops said to me, "Hey, let's figure out this sales thing." The referral well started to go dry, and we weren't getting as many people handing us new clients, and we had to figure out that cold, how do we go out and get new logos? And so that's really where my story started, and why I'm here. It's because I've gone through every single nook and cranny of I'm bad at this. Wait a minute, I got to this point where I'm pretty good, but now I'm hitting this roadblock. How do I rebuild? And I've just gone through these constant cycles and iterations of improvement in sales that have led me to the point where I'm very happy to be able to give back and actually coach people to expedite their journey in the sales space, because it is vast, it is wide. There are so many different areas that you can go down and get lost in if you don't have proper guidance. And that's why we're here today.
And part of that story is you started off it as a technical role at an MSP and then made a transition into sales. Tell us more about that, because this is the quintessential story of how MSP business owner gets
Hmm.
started. Like, they were the best technician at their previous company and they grew up the courage to hang their own shingle and started their own business. And they
Yes.
have to make this transition from technician to business owner, two completely different lives. How
Yes.
did you manage to do that? You're a business owner now too. So you did
Yes.
technician, then sales at MSP, now business owner.
It is it is a very common story you hear in this space, absolutely. And you go from this very technical, there's an answer, how do I get there approach of thinking, very logical. I am a very type A person. I don't want to walk into a room and talk to people. I don't want to pick up the phone and call people. I was the poster boy for I shouldn't be doing sales. And eventually, I was just sitting there and going from a technical into a sales role. I was sitting there and I was like, I have no meetings for 8 weeks. I am someone who calls himself a closer. So I had that dissonance internally, like, you're not really what you say you are here. And so I did what a lot of people do. I heard it all. Cold calling's dead. Don't do cold outreach. I heard everything and I believed it because it's what I needed to hear to affirm that I didn't need to pick up the phone and do this thing. And I remember picking up the phone, calling this guy, and I say, if you can learn sales in Massachusetts, we're called massholes for a reason. I picked up the phone and I got, how the did you get this number? Can you swear on this podcast? Is that all right? Will they edit
No,
it out?
don't.
Okay, okay, don't. All right.
Okay, we'll bleep it.
So, all right. It's like he's like, why the? How did you get? And I just, my face was beet red. My heart was
Right.
pumping. I hung up the phone. I didn't even know what to say. And then it was from that moment though where I realized that you're not going to be good at this thing the first time you do it. It's going to take an incredible amount of volume to get good at this. And the first no is just a step in the right direction. And so I really had to rewire my brain because I was very logic. I was very A, B, C, D. This is the set way. And sales is not a linear process by any stretch of the imagination. There's so many different ways and different avenues that you can go into, which is why you need to be good at a lot of different things. And I always like to say to people that sales is a thousand little things done right. And in my coaching program, a lot of what we're doing is making sure that these little things are done right. So you get those higher level results towards the bottom of the funnel where ultimately you're getting more signatures. So that journey from technical into sales was a very friction filled process, we'll call it. And I really needed to change the way that I communicated with people. And I needed to develop different styles of communication, whether it was adaptive communication or emotional communication, persuasive communication, all these different types. I had to learn how to talk to people in a business format. And it was very challenging because as tech people, what do we want to do? We want to sit here. I have three monitors in front of me. I want to work on tech issues. I want to dive into problems. I really don't want to be out there talking to people as much. And so there's a lot of friction. But when you do learn these things and you learn how people, human behavior, psychology all tie into sales, it almost feels like you have the answers to the test. And then it becomes very fun. It's just really hard to get through that very beginning stage where there's so much friction.
Well, tell us more about that because I think most of the people, statistically, most of the MSPs listening to this are under $1 million per year,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
they're going to be in the persona where the business owner is the person doing sales,
Hmm.
and probably still more than half of their mind is fulfilling the the technical delivery to the client,
Hmm.
for better or worse.
Sure.
When you were in the first stages of this transition, what was the, like what was the addict behavior keeping you from making progress, and how did you stay honest to yourself and go through this grind, deal with this shame
Hmm.
of rejection? How did you
Yeah.
get through that to where you
Hmm.
are now? Because it looks all cool and easy when we're looking at you now, but we
Yeah.
want to know, like, those first 6 months, how did you survive without giving up?
It's a really good question. I heard I did a little dabble back in college where I tried to be a day trader, and I did not do well by any means. And one thing that I read though, and I constantly revisited, and I saw this stat over and over again that the most successful traders are right below 50% of the time. And it kind of just gave me that fail forward mindset. It always stuck with me for some reason that when something pops up and it's challenging, you don't need to be right 100% of the time. And actually, oftentimes you're going to be wrong far more than you're right. But you just put these little puzzle pieces together as you go and you really start to figure out and make sense to what works. But more specifically, the first 6 months and really talking about those MSPs that are in that 500,000 to $1 million range, when you're at that stage, you're dealing a lot with referrals. You're dealing a lot with people handing over different customers to you or saying, hey, you should work with this person or that person because you're stretched too thin a lot of the times. And so you need to get out there and start talking to more people, or you would like to, but you just simply don't have the time. And so a big shift from that 500 to a million plus is, are you able to talk to people that aren't really familiar with your brand and who you are? That's where sales becomes a skill that can expedite growth for your company. And so I always say to people, and there's a little bit of shock when I say it in our coaching program, but inbound and referral selling is the tip of the iceberg of sales. I used to say it's not selling,
Product
but
placement.
yeah, pretty good,
No, I'm
right?
just joking.
But I
Yeah.
used to say it's not sales, and people would get very offended, like, well, and I was like, okay, fair. It is a small degree of sales involved in inbound and referral selling, but somebody who's really good and has a high level of skill in sales understands that sales is really that what happens when me and you, Mike, are sitting on a first time conversation. You don't know me. I don't know you, other than the maybe light amount of research that we've done about each other. And how can I get that person to ultimately be
Right.
a customer for us? That's what selling is. And it's a skill piece. I think there's a missing skill piece there in that 500 to a million, not because they don't know, but just because they don't have the time or resource to develop that skill.
How did you get the practice in? Uh,
Mm,
the success comes from dealing with the shame and doing repetition and getting feedback. How did you get the reps in so that you can build enough skill and have enough conviction to
mhm.
close deals?
Discipline over a period of time is the answer that I'm gonna give to almost anything. So
Someone just rolled their eyes. What do you mean, Steve? Like,
I'll be very
give me the
specific. I
give
know
me
I
your
know
daily.
somebody just yes,
Give me
yes,
your
but
daily, and don't
I
tell us that you woke up at 6 o'clock in the morning and you had cold matcha or something. Give me your daily of how you
yes.
found people and how you called them. Like, what was the
Yes.
deal?
So I developed the mindset. My pops always said to me, I want you to become a true salesperson. I want you to become a true hunter, somebody who goes out and gets logos. And I started to reverse engineer to, okay, well, what would a really successful salesperson do? What would their day look like? And how can I mimic those things to be successful? The first thing that I started doing, and I think that everybody should do this regardless of the position you're in, find time to study in some form. If you can do 30 minutes a day, it'll change your life. That involves reading something from a nonfiction sales or business minded book, whatever the skill that you're trying to develop is. Read 10 pages a day and study that for about 30 minutes. If you can do more, great. I like to get that out of the way early in the morning. It just serves me well and it starts my momentum. So when I start to do something like that, I learn something or I dive into a topic based around human behavior, psychology, sales, persuasion, whatever that I'm really interested in. It just sets my day right. Now let's say that I'm waking up at around 6:30. Now from 6:30 to 9, I'm working on things like let me build my list, let me make sure the list is where it needs to be at. I'm coming up with a game plan and I'm organizing my day. That could be a couple of hours depending on how much I need to do for that day. So I have everything administratively done that needs to be done because I don't take my administrative time during my selling hours or my golden hours, as everybody calls them. So from 9 to noon and from 1 to 5, you're not updating your CRM. That's wasting what I would call revenue generating activity time. That's when you're picking up the phone, you're sending emails, and you're doing things as far as promotion for your company. Now, that morning period, if you want to get very tactical, this is what I've settled on as the most effective way to communicate with prospects on both a cold and the closer side of things would be send your emails in the morning, get 20 or 30 accounts that you want to go after, and you send your email to them. Now, I'm not going to get too tactical with like what to send because there's different stages and times that you're communicating with prospects. But at the very beginning of your day, you're sending out those 20 to 30 messages. Now, and there's a call to action in that where it's like, hey, if I don't hear from you, I'll get back to you this afternoon as well. In the afternoon, you're calling up on those prospects that you've emailed in the morning. So what ends up happening is you get a few people who say now's not a good time, this isn't the whatever. You get the people who just push off and respond in either positive or negative, and then you are calling all the people who didn't respond in the afternoon, and you're increasing your likelihood. So I was one of those people for years who said cold calling's dead, don't do it, it doesn't work. If you're just picking up the phone with a list of 50 contacts and saying, I'm going to dial them aimlessly and I'm just going to call cold, yeah, your odds of getting connecting with people probably aren't going to be great. And your chances of getting first time appointments are going to be very low. But if you channel that with email, LinkedIn touches, this multi touch step process, then you're going to set yourself for a lot of success. So, the challenging part is that early on, when you're starting this process of, I'm going to become a salesperson, I'm going to become a closer, I'm going to master persuasion, all these different things, is they don't stick with it long enough and they do it for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks and they go, well, this isn't for me. And that tactic really didn't work. When in reality, you need to expand your horizon, you need to look a little bit longer, and you need to realize that these 100,000 little things that you're doing right now with very little result is only going to compound. And sales is a game of compounding and momentum. The wheel is so heavy to push at the beginning of that journey, so heavy. Like, I can't even explain how much of an uphill battle it feels like. But once that thing starts to move and it slowly starts to creep forward, you're like, oh, wait a minute, this is doable. And then you learn something new and you apply it. And then the wheel starts moving a little bit faster. And then you're 60, 90, 6 months into this routine of living your day like a closer. And if you do that for 6 months, I challenge you to come back to me and tell me you didn't make incredible amount of strides in your sales career. I can't see that happening.
Is that the time frame that that you had to survive through? Setting expectation on that is an important part of getting someone
Mhm.
to stay committed to this after 4
Sure.
months.
Yeah. Well, that depends on the person. So there's a lot of different things that I hire and look for in people. And it really depends on what you're coming to the table with. So I have people that if you struggle with confidence and conveying conviction in your messages, then that's something we're going to work on. And that might take a little bit longer than needing to learn how to ask proper questions. So it depends on where you're coming to me in your, we'll say in your development. But what are you to expect? Like, what is the timeline here? 3 to 6 months is a reasonable timeline, but that can be extended or condensed depending on your volume and what you're willing to put into it. If you go home after a long days of work living that closer lifestyle and you break open the books and you rehearse and you study and you put in an extra 4 to 5 hours a day, I don't think it's going to take you 6 to 12 months to get to where you want to be. I think it's going to condense that timeline. So I tell the people I train with all the time, a lot of this is what you're willing to put in.
You've worked with MSPs that are under a million and now 1 to 5 million. They
Mhm.
have made this transition past the $1 million ceiling,
Yeah.
which like 90% of businesses in the United States don't get over. It's a huge
Yeah.
milestone. What are attributes of MSPs that you've worked with that have successfully crossed this Rubicon?
Mhm. Speed to implementation is one, I think is a big and often overlooked one. So just to give you a more of an analogy as an example, if I go read a book and this is how I started my development, but say I go read a book and I see something really cool that is a tactic relating to sales, the time it takes you to go try that out in the market or fail forward, depending on how it goes, is going to determine a lot of your growth rate. So the time it takes for these people to implement and make decisions and seek out help where they're not good at certain things seems to be quicker than those 500,000 to a million. I think they're just so swamped in day to day and trying to
Mhm.
grow and get out of this. I need to handle the tech. I need to handle operations. I need to handle billing. Like they're doing everything. And so it's hard to pull your head above the water and you're always in that reactive mode. And so my whole viewpoint is that sales is a skill that can expedite that process of growth so you can hire out. And if you're going to bring on salespeople, callers, closers, whatever position you're hiring for, as that person that's trying to get out of that daily flow, the owner side, it's good to know what you're talking about to those people. And so
Good
a
to know
big,
sounds soft. Like, let me ask a more clarifying question.
please,
Because
please.
you and I have both talked to MSPs that are below this $1 million mark that feel stuck, and
Mhm.
their mind says, "I'll hire a salesperson."
Yeah.
However, they have not. They don't have a process written down. They
Hmm.
have not done any outbound before, so they're looking at a salesperson hoping that they come in with some answers.
Yes. Losing game. Losing game to
How do you deal with that? And then, like, how do you course correct and say, okay, before you can meaningfully hire someone to do this, we need to write an
Mhm,
SOP. How do we get the MSP business owner
mhm.
enough repetition so that they can confidently write down an SOP to set the salesperson up for success?
At the end of the day, you need to get leads in the door or appointments on the board. And so if that means picking up the phone and making 20 to 30 dials a day, whatever your time allots, I always say the more the better. Again, not to just say volume, but pick up the phone, make dials, learn the skill, get people to those appointments, take those appointments, get the reps in. Again, if it goes bad, what did I do wrong? If it goes good, write it down. Even write down the bad too, because a lot of my training is, hey, here's where I went wrong, so you don't have to. Document everything. I had an incredible mentor who told me, document everything even when you don't think you need to, because you're going to look back and you're going to want those thoughts top of mind or at least written somewhere when the time comes and you're going to use them. So document everything, but make phone calls, send out your emails. Like you need to get into a rhythm of revenue generating activities. And I know that's really challenging to hear in that 500 to $1 million range that we're talking about, because you're sitting there like, yeah, in theory, that's awesome, but I have to do this. I have to do that. I have all these responsibilities as a business owner. I get that. And one of the biggest pieces of advice I give any business owner, salesperson that I work with is, if possible, extend your hours. So if there's certain things you can get done early in the morning when things are quiet, that's a sacrifice that I'm personally willing to make 10 times out of 10. But you need to have outbound activity. You need to have revenue generating activity in order to get the volume to start that wheel of practice. So it's making your dials, sending out those emails, following up on those in the afternoon if you have the ability to, and getting the amount of meetings in the door so you can start to practice what you're learning and exercise that skill. One of the core concepts of Nexus is sales is not a spectator sport. It is a performance sport. You need to get in the ring and you need to do it. Nobody, it does not matter if you sit on every single training that I have for the next 12 months. If you take none of that and apply it to those moments and you're not able to do it under pressure, then none of that stuff matters. And so you have to exercise that muscle. It's like lifting. I know you're a big lifter. You don't get jacked by just staring at a gym. It just doesn't
I
work. You got to,
wish.
yeah, right? Like it would solve all my problems. But you got to go in, and the first day you look silly and you don't know how to
Right.
do the incline press and you're not connected with anything. And you walk out of there like, I
Don't tell
feel
my
more
trainer that.
hurt than sore.
Trigger
And
words.
yeah, exactly. But now, a year later, you're like, damn, I got like that tricep right there. Like I'm looking pretty good. And then that motivates you to keep going. But it's that first spot where people aren't willing to take that jump and exercise that skill. So it just becomes useless information. So you have to be willing to apply it, but you need that volume up front to get stuff in the door so you can practice.
Right. It's good to suck at something. It's
It's
good
the
to look
best.
silly. When you
Yes.
look silly at something, it's because you're pushing yourself to do something new. Don't let anyone make you feel bad about that. If someone makes you feel bad about that, you call Steve and I, and we'll be there with you.
We're big
Everyone
guys. We'll
sucks.
rough them up. Yeah.
Everyone sucks when they start at something. Everyone sucks.
Yes,
Everyone sucks. Like
absolutely.
Steve sucked when he started calling. He doesn't anymore because he called enough.
I will give a quick story to anybody out there who thinks like maybe sales isn't for me. I'm too introverted. I'm not good at this. I don't want to. I asked on a sales call, I was a dubbed closer. I looked at the prospect and I said, thanks for taking the call today. So, do you think you could tell me about your pain points? If it ever gets bad, I can promise you that you probably weren't worse than I was at the start. What are your pain points? Like 101, probably don't want to ask that. The goal is to elicit that information without asking. Any mistake that you've made or you think you're going to make, trust me, someone has made it. They've looked silly. The only way I would consider that a real loss is if you let that affect you to the point where you don't continue to learn and develop that skill. So it's not something that is going to happen overnight, but be willing to fail, be willing to look stupid, be willing to sound silly at times, be willing to ask the uncomfortable question, and you'll thank yourself in 3, 6, 12 months, depending on how much volume you put in.
Okay, wrap up on this line of thinking. If
Okay.
MSP owner, you know, at this plateau, $500,000, $600,000 per year, something like that, they're trying to now make the jump to hitting the $1 million mark. They're not hiring a salesperson. They're going to grab their own bootstraps here. What is the, if like to keep it simple, give them one tactic. What is the one tactic that would teach them enough
Mhm.
and be painful, but just painful enough that they can stick with it for 6 months?
Okay, that's a good question. Two things. I'll go two routes with this because they're both things that I've personally done and really helped with the development side. One is seek out strong coaches and people that are going to help you and give you a lot of experience and get you to that point where you are confident in a selling role. So if you can find good mentors and good coaches, it's going to expedite the journey. I've had amazing mentors that have gotten me. They have just, I mean, imagine taking a bullet train 150 miles an hour instead of walking. They just expedite the learning curve. It's incredible. So seek out strong mentorship and coaching. The second thing is if you don't have time and you are in that boat, budget for somebody to do it for you. Get enough people in the door as far as prospects and people that want to talk to your business so you can start to exercise that sales skill. Whether that's a do it for you type service, a calling service, whether it's some form of an email service, getting your name out there, whatever. I recommend calling personally. I think calling is really the way to go paired with that, the email side of the marketing machine. But hire someone to do it for you if you don't have the time, because you're going to need to see numbers and volume, and people are going to have to walk through that door for you to able to practice this stuff. And if there's no volume up front, then you're just practicing a skill to exercise once or twice a month, and that's just not nearly going to be enough volume for you to really hone your skills.
Because the once or twice a month's volume is what's coming in from word of mouth referral or, lucky website inbound or something.
Exactly. And you're going to find that those conversations, the trust is almost built in because they came to you or referred to you. Whereas those people who are dialing on your behalf and get those appointments to the door, I've got newsflash, the leads are not broken. You might just not know how to handle them, but that's a good thing. And we can teach you how to do that. So get somebody to do it for you if you don't have the time. Outsource it if you need to, but you need to start seeing volume as far as cold people coming to you so you can learn how to build trust and get those new logos indoor.
To help make this decision, how would you approach defining customer acquisition cost for an MSP that's trying to go from half a mil to $1 million per year? How should they think about customer acquisition cost?
I guess it really depends on where they are in their journey as far as the cost of acquisition. But let's say that somebody is, we'll throw a round number out there. Let's say that you're spending 5 grand a month on a do it for you type calling service. A lot of people look at that and go, 5 grand a month, that's really expensive. Oh, excuse me. What if you were to look at it from this perspective? If you bring on net new 5 grand in net new MRR or annualize $60,000 in revenue, then that pays for itself moving forward. So a way that we always talk about this with people is, let's take that $5,000 number, and they think, wow, that's a really expensive investment. Depending on your ICP, that could be closing one, could be closing two, maybe three new logos for that year, and then that investment is paid for itself. Then everything after that is, we'll call it free volume to work with to really develop that skill set.
Okay, let's go deeper into this because
Sure,
done for you calling 5 grand a month, pretty good deal. That calling, maybe a little bit of email. So there are a bunch of people that can do it for that price. Good deal.
sure.
Uh, you're committing for at least a year because the first 6 months are probably going to be a waste of time because your callers are learning, you're going to get like 10 appointments. All 10 of those, just because the Cosmos is sticking it to you, are going to be locked in a 3-year contract. So
Okay,
you get
okay.
the first 6 months is an investment into learning. The second 6 months, you're going to start having some decent meetings. Maybe the first appointment that you had, now they're going to be in a buying window because their contract's renewing. So the
Mhm,
second 6 months is getting good.
sure.
Uh, what's a number like? What's the typical gross margin that your MSPs have been thinking about? Like they're going to get a $50,000 per year contract with a client, 20-ish,
Mhm,
25 employee, $200 per seat. Okay, $50,000 a year
okay.
contract. Gross margin 20 to 40%, something like that.
Yeah, it's
Okay,
pretty
so
accurate.
let's run down those numbers of what a reasonable total customer acquisition cost would be. Because as I try and have this conversation with MSPs often, when they're pinching pennies over like spending $100 to go talk to a human being and thinking that's a lot of money. $500 for a golf tournament is a lot of money. Well, not $500 is not a lot of money. The contract's worth 50 grand per year.
Sure.
Because this ties into the confidence in paying $5,000 a month for a calling
Mhm.
agency.
Yes.
Because Yeah,
They
one
look at
contract
it.
pays off, but let's not look at it as if I get lucky and one contract pays off, this is okay. Let's look at it as how much can I reasonably invest to get each new client and then do that over and over again.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things that, again, you're just, if you're looking at it from a perspective of, well, what if I don't close anything? Then you've identified a problem there in and of itself. Maybe there is a skill gap that you need to exercise and move in the direction of. So if you're thinking that this is going to be, oh, we're paying 5 grand a month, and oh shoot, we're going to be wasting 5 grand because we don't know what to do with them, then you can always start with coaching too to increase those odds. But again, you're going to run into the same problem. We need volume in the door to exercise this skill. So it really depends, like you're saying, on what is the cost to acquire the customer and is that value worth it? For example, if someone's spending $100 to go to a golf tournament and they can walk away with 5, 6, 7 different business cards and people to personally follow up on, that's well worth it because now you have 7 warmer prospects that you can give a call to and nurture. And you said something really interesting. I actually want to jump back to. You said that in the first 6 months you might only get 10, and we made up that scenario, which is really can be an accurate situation that people find themselves in. But one thing that I think people really need to understand and be cautious of when you're jumping into a do it for you type appointment setting service is, I said it earlier, but the leads aren't broken. You may just not know how to sell. I was a client at one point of these different types of companies. I've been a client numerous times with different vendors. I'll never forget it. I was the person sitting in the seat going to the corner office going, hey, I don't think these guys work. Like they don't have pain, they don't have problems. And that in and of itself was a problem in my thinking towards, I was just trying to manufacture and get them somewhere, and I wasn't running true discovery. And so these meetings I would have, it was like, well, what's going on? And they'd be like, oh, well, things are okay right now. Okay, great. And I would just be like, all right, great. They didn't have pain, move on, bad meeting. That's not a bad meeting. It just means that they might be at a different stage in their buying cycle or their buyer's process than I'm at in my sales process. And I was just thinking about it from my perspective. And so a lot of what we train on is the other person's perspective. So when you have those moments of, hey, we're meeting for the first time, you don't have pain or perceived pain, or maybe you do have some problems, but you're not fully ready to admit it yet. How do you nurture those conversations so that when they are in the window, they're ready to go? And if they're problem unaware, how can we get them to problem aware as fast as possible? And we do that through neutral discovery, where again, we're not trying to manufacture or place people in these boxes, but we're meeting them where they're at, tailoring their message, and getting them to where we need them to be. Went off a little tangent there, but just wanted
Mm.
to throw an example out there.
Well, that's just the reality, and it's important to put words to this because this is the reality of going outbound. Is
Hmm.
when someone comes to you inbound, they've indicated to you that they're probably in a buying window because they've gone out of their way to come to your website and
Yes.
they searched IT services near me and they came to your website and they filled out your contact form that was probably hard to fill out with 8 different fields in it. And they
Yeah.
got to you. So there's
Yes.
probably something bothering them. But when
Yes.
you call, they may like 12 months from now, their existing contract renews. And right now, they're probably happy because they have not thought about it.
Yes.
You got to take them from there to giving you their business 12 months from now, which is a
Ex-
long process.
Exactly. And if somebody is coming to you, they've realized I have a need, something caused that problem. We've done some research, we've built our criteria, and then they've came to you. When you go to them, they might even be before that where they go, I don't really have a problem. And as IT people, we oftentimes see problems ahead of the normal person seeing them, especially from the IT perspective, because we're so close to it. It's like somebody going, yeah, we're a 20-person healthcare practice and we have no IT. We don't do anything for cybersecurity and we do nothing for compliance, but we're good. And you're like, that's a problem, but you can't say that's a problem because then the guards go up and they just get defensive. So you might be finding someone who is problem unaware. You might be finding somebody who just realized they have a problem. You might find somebody who's done that work and they've built their criteria, they've done their research, and then you happen to catch them at the right time. And then they do have pain on that call. But you need to get really good at mapping people and adjusting your communication style to where they are, not where you want them to be showing up at.
What's the one parameter within the control of the salesperson that can help dilute those issues? Because if you call 10 people and they all are problem unaware, what would be your reaction as a coach to me as the
Mm.
salesperson?
So how would I
I
react
I
to
say, "Oh,
you?
Steve, I called 10 people, like you said, they
Yes.
all said they're problem unaware. What do I do
Yes.
now?"
That's a very good one. I like to defer to the marketing machine for a lot of that, so sending them information that could be directly relating to blind spots. But let's say that you are tactfully calling and you are getting a bunch of these, "Oh, we don't have any problems, we're good." Problem unaware is very challenging to speak to because it is essentially saying, "I have no problems and I have no need to talk to you." Whereas we know there is a problem here. There's a few different things you can do, and there's a couple of different angles. One, there is a subtle reframe. So, for example, a lot of what I train on is called neutral communication, or doing things in a way that is non confrontational and very easy to get into conversations that are typically you don't get access to by really just being up the middle. Now, that I'll show you the bad and I'll show you the good. So, if I say to you, Mike, you say, let's say you say to me, well, I don't really have any problems. We don't have IT. We don't do this stuff. We're totally fine. Well, Michael, actually, I do think you have some problems because what we typically see is that when you don't have cybersecurity and you have 20 people, there's a lot of risk, and that risk can compound over time, and it could set you up for some really bad stuff. And you need to be HIPAA compliant as well. So there's a lot of stuff here we should talk about. Very low level conversational skills, and you're on the other end, like, what the, who is this mother? And you just
Eject, eject.
Yeah, click, and then you hear the click, and it's like, I wonder why they don't like that idiot, and we blame the prospect.
Yeah,
But if I go, Mike, I get that, and that's actually very similar to a lot of the people that we talk to. But do you mind if I offer, I guess, just a little bit of a different perspective on what you just said? And they're gonna go, yeah, I've never had a permission based opener not really work in these scenarios. So let's assume you go, yeah, sure. You mentioned a few things around not using security, and you have a 20-person practice that's fully operational, and you mentioned you're looking to grow and do all these different things. The different perspective here is some of the baseline things regarding IT, cybersecurity, compliance can tie into a few different factors, and it feels like you haven't had a lot of issues with IT, but that doesn't mean that things aren't happening. And a lot of what IT people think of it as, you call me, you have a problem, I fix it. But that's really the tip of the iceberg, not to point to you again, is the tip
okay.
of the iceberg. 80% of what we do, 80% of IT is what's below that tip of the iceberg, is the things that are happening when you're not calling us. And so when you say that you're not doing anything or you don't use anybody, it's the things on the back end that aren't happening that I just want to make you aware of. Now that's a reframe. Now on a cold call, that can be very challenging to do right there and right then. Reframes are much easier when you're in a closing situation or a situation where there's a little bit of openness because they've either taken the meeting or there's a small amount of trust built. And the rule of thumb with confrontation or offering different perspective is the less trust you have, the more neutral you need to be. And neutral is simply that, hey, do you mind if I offer you a slightly different perspective on what you just said? I think we're working off different information here. And so that is a way that I would go about reframing somebody, whether it's on either a cold call or whether it's on a closer call. But it would be loosely around those guidelines.
Well, that's better than giving up and blaming the prospect, because I think that's the de facto option is blaming and degenerating the person on the other side instead of being empathetic and realizing that, yeah, they don't think that they have a problem right now.
Hmm.
That's
Yeah.
part of that is the most likely outcome. It's the most
Yes.
likely It's not even very likely. It's the most likely outcome of a cold interaction outbound. Okay, deal with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And like you said, a lot of us get into that mind, and I've done it before too. I'm going to blame the prospect for
Right.
my inability to communicate the thing that they need to hear. I That is actually one of the biggest things I hear from people, even in now talking to MSPs, because now I used to sell MSP services and now I sell to primarily owners. The biggest thing that I hear is just that. Well, they don't know they have problems. Like they don't know what's good for them. They don't, and it's you get to the point where you almost build resentment towards the prospect. And that is the exact opposite of the thing that you want to have for them, which should be empathy.
Hmm.
And that was a big that was a big shortcoming of mine. I wasn't that person who was able to recognize the emotion in sales. And so you need to have that viewpoint of what's the prospect thinking right now? What are their motivations? What are their fears? What are the things that I need to cater to in order to get this across the finish line? And you need to communicate appropriately in those situations because it is your job as a salesperson to communicate properly and to let this person know in some way that the status quo is not good enough. Good enough is not good enough. And most of us are selling against good enough or that line of indecision. I think it was like 50 or 52% of deals are lost to we're going to stick with our current provider. So your competition isn't even your competition. It's
Is
do
doing
you have the
nothing.
communic it's do you have the communication skills to tell them, "Hey, what you're doing isn't good enough." That's what sales is.
Hmm. Well, I echo the empathy thing.
Hmm.
Most important, most important. And you see it when people get jaded. Is like there's this trough where the shame of rejection either makes you get jaded, which is a downward spiral to total failure,
Yes.
or like it hardens you to be more empathetic with the person on the other side of the phone.
Yeah.
And then enough reps gets you to the promised land.
Well, it's funny you say that because human behavior makes us adversarial. Like, we failed, we got shut down, I hate prospect. But
Right.
that is the wrong reaction to the situation, and it sucks. I've had those 10 grand per month plus contracts that didn't bounce our way, and I remember looking at them and being like, I thought I nailed it, and then I go back and I review the tape and I look at my notes, and there's always that dark horse or that thing that you missed. And so in going back and seeing, we always call it locus of control. When I'm training at Nexus, it's do you have an internal and external locus of control? I am somebody who has a massive internal locus, meaning that when something bad happens to me, I'm going to find a way to make it my fault. I don't care what it is. Like, there's lightning outside. Somehow I'm going to figure out a way to blame on me so I can get rid of external factors. Whereas external locus of control, those people who are always saying it's the customer's fault. They don't know any better. It's the prospect's fault. It's this person. It's that person. If only, whatever. We focus on with people, have that internal locus control and always find a way to make it your fault within reason. Obviously, the lightning example is pretty out there, but find a way to make it your fault, and you're going to learn a lot more and a lot quicker, I should say, than if you're somebody who's constantly looking at external reasons as to why you didn't succeed or do the thing that you said you were going to do.
Hmm. Sweet. All right. That's a healthy wrap up, Steve. Tell
All
us
right,
where we
man.
can find more about you.
Yes, absolutely. So www.nexussalesgroupgrp.com. You can go over there. You can check out what we're doing, how we're doing it. You can hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm Steve Young. And yeah, man, reach out. I love talking to MSPs about what they have going on. I love talking about what they have going on as far as generating new business and some strategies that they're looking to deploy. So reach out, say hello, and if it makes sense to, I'd be happy to set up some time to chat with everybody.
What specific type of MSPs do you like serving and what problem do you solve for them?
I like serving the small to medium size. So we talked about that 500 to a million mark. I love working with them because there's so much to learn at that stage and we can really expedite that learning curve. My job is to get people to increase their close rate. At the core of what I do, we have a do it yourself, we have coaching, and we have a do it for you calling program. Primarily, what I'm focused on is that skill development. Can you close at a higher percentage to make use of the leads that are coming in the door, and then increasing that over time when you have the skill to convert as many people as possible.
Beauty. All right, Steve. Thanks for joining us on only our second, I think, Cyber Confidential episode of this year. I'm gonna probably see you in person for sure at ScaleCon. Maybe
Yes.
I'll come to
Oh,
Massachusetts
please,
for several things, but I gotta let you know how my walk and knock goes in 4 weeks, and I'll send you the
please.
records of that. You give me some feedback on the tape.
Yes, and for everyone listening, I do have a bit of a present for everybody, as far as just some stuff that you can take home and start to implement immediately. I've got some objection sheets. I've got some book of questions for everybody, IT specific, and I've got some other stuff that I'm going to send over to Mike too. So hopefully we can send that out to everybody so you guys can just have some immediate actionable things that you can apply to your sales appointments.
Wicked. All right, Steve.
Sweet, man.
Appreciate it. Thanks for coming on the show. See you next time,
Absolutely.
everyone.
Take care.
Enjoyed this episode? Hit like, drop a comment, and subscribe.